everyone. So wonderful to see you all here today. I think we're mostly still on February 18th for most folks, as some people might already be in the 19th, or will watch this tomorrow. So thank you all for being here. I'm Dr. Patty Witkowsky, and I'm the Associate Professor and Department Chair in the Department of Leadership Research and Foundations at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. It's my pleasure today to host today's important conversation, Student Voices on Mental Health, and it's sponsored by the International Association of Student Affairs and Services. I value the knowledge sharing and collaborations provided through IASIS, and I'm grateful to Lisa for the invitation to host this webinar today. Mental health continues to be one of the most pressing issues facing students worldwide. While institutions work to provide support, it's essential that we listen directly to students, hearing their challenges, their resilience, and their ideas for change. Today, we have an incredible panel of student leaders from 3 different cultures and parts of the world who will share their experiences, perspectives, and recommendations for improving mental health support in higher education. We have several questions for them, and once we're done with the questions and throughout, we welcome you to please use the chat to list any questions that you might have. Otherwise, you can also just share that you have a question, and we'll call on you when it's time to ask those questions at the end of the question, our planned question time. So without further ado, we're going to start out with our students introducing themselves, and we just really look forward to this time together. And again, thank you all for taking the time today so that we can learn in this space together. So I'll start off with our students. Again, thank you so much for being here. Kelsey, if you don't mind, I'll have you start us off. The first question students will be answering is just introduce yourself, share your name, your institution, where you are in the world, your year in school, and your area of study. And then just please, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your experience with mental health while in college.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Joseph, a recent graduate of the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, Trinidad and Tobago. I majored in sociology and minored in gender and development studies and criminology. I began my academic journey at UWI in 2018. I made the Dean's List and discovered my passion for gender studies in semester 1. But I struggled with my mental health, thinking it was typical student burnout. I then decided to take a leave of absence, and then the global COVID-19 pandemic happened, shifting in-person classes to online. I tried to balance being a full-time student while working as a customer care agent for Digicel and engaging in feminist activism. This experience significantly impacted my mental health. In 2021, my therapist diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. Not necessarily from the pandemic, but things have happened to me throughout my childhood and my adult life as well. My experience with mental health during my time at university, I will say, has been one filled with emotional turmoil, including severe depressive episode and anxiety attacks, which led to a few leaves of absence, which were recommended by my therapist and just in general. Fortunately, someone in the UWI administration introduced me to the Student Life and Development Department, the department that nominated me for this role here today. And they made a significant difference to me as a student with mental health conditions, providing the accommodations I needed to succeed and complete my undergraduate program, which I completed this year, and I got my degree.
Of course, many congratulations to Kelsey, and thank you for being so open and sharing your experiences. We'll learn more soon, but thank you, Kelsey. Juan, will you share next?
Yeah, certainly. So thank you, Kelsey. First of all, thank you so much for all of you to being here in this webinar. My name is Juan Cifuentes. I'm from the Catholic University of Colombia. And while I'm currently in Bogota, it's a little bit freezing here. And I've been in the university since 2015 when I started my economics degree. And currently I'm a postgraduate student for financial administration. And I have also been part of the drama club in the university for almost 10 years. 10 years by now. And well, my experience with mental health, I would like to talk about what some of the obstacles that I have faced, talking about physically and mentally throughout my career, and handling with expectations, with anxiety, and with the depression that is derived from social media. So, because all of the expectations that we have on Instagram, TikTok, back then it was Facebook, but we have a lot of things to face, and not only our own expectations about how we see ourselves in the future, but the expectations from our relatives, for example, and the expectations from our parents to be better, to do your best. And that's some of the biggest things, but we're going to talk about it later. So I'm going to leave it like that by now.
Thank you, Juan, and thank you so much for sharing some different perspectives too and experiences that you're having. Thank you. Lumelo, we'll share next.
Good afternoon for my South Africans. Good evening, good night, almost good morning. My name is Khumelo Mjikeliso. I am a 21-year-old final year law student at the University of Pretoria. There's a lot about mental health and where I've been in terms of like where mental health started for me within this institution, but more specifically, student leadership is actually where it all started. And I have served under multiple platforms within the university, from being a well-being member, a mental well-being member within my residence, to then becoming the chairperson of my residence, and then becoming the chairperson of all chairpersons within the university, and then later on becoming the resident member for the SRC, which is basically like the top person for residences within the university in its totality. So my extensive background in terms of leadership has also like kind of exposed me to what mental health truly is, and I've dealt with my own as well, from specifically anxiety. I'm a very anxious person. Everything makes me nervous, and I know anxiety stems deeper than nerves, and I've learned that firsthand. I have younger siblings, and one is a teenager. That's another, form of a mental health that you kind of experience. But more specifically from the college or university aspect, being a student is very stressful. And I think we know, when we've had talks behind and prior to this webinar, where we've just seen what it's like to be a student in terms of mental health. And my involvement within the university has stemmed from getting professional training with the student counseling unit, to getting trained by the department that actually nominated me for this webinar, to working with students who are actually suicidal and depressed and deal with a lot of like various stresses as well, outside of just the typical four categories of mental health, whatever that we may know, but just even like students who may be dealing with cultural awakenings and just the stress of just moving in and first years. And we've all been there. I think you call them freshmen in America. Yeah, so we call them first years in South Africa. So that's just kind of where how extensive my background with mental health has been. And I'm honored to be here. It's great to kind of represent this university as well for the last 4 years. And it is my final year, so it's a nice way to kind of end it off. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear about the leadership opportunities you've been involved in as well. So thank you, Humelo, for also sharing that. So next question, I'll just let any of the panelists jump in. I won't call on you. So as you feel moved to respond, feel free. How would you describe the current state of mental health among students on your campus, and or broadly within your country and culture?
I can go ahead and yeah. So the current state of mental health among students at the UWI St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago is concerning, especially since the issue has worsened due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I found a study titled Leveraging Research, Community and Collaboration Towards a Robust COVID-19 Mental Health Response in the Caribbean, published in 2023 by the Faculty of Medical Sciences at UWI, reported that students experience high levels of anxiety and depression even before the pandemic. The findings indicated that these conditions worsened during and after the pandemic. Anecdotal evidence also supports the previously shared data I've observed. So my last semester on campus yesterday, I was just observing like my peers' interactions, and I was even talking to lecturers about it as well. So I've observed my peers and had conversation with various lecturers at UWI about the dilemma. I discovered that many students have been finding it extremely difficult to socialize with each other, to form meaningful friendships, or just find friends to have on campus or people in the same degree program as you. And even participating in class, a lot of students were afraid to raise their hands. I remember going to a class early, and my lecturer wasn't there because it was like 30 minutes before my class. So the other lecturer who was leaving and packing up her things, I was just like, what is he chucked that for? She said, well, after the pandemic, like the first years or like students on the whole are very shy, even if they know the answer to things, to even raise their hand or even speak. So it's kind of like a treat to them. And I found that very interesting because I was sitting next to my peer and I'll be like, you have the answer. And then she'd be like, how you answer? And I'll be like, well, even if I don't have the answer, that's how I generally learn. Like I'm curious, like I don't only want to like do good in the course for a grade, but I honestly want to take the information I've learned and apply it to real life situations. And I even attended like a mental health club called UWI in on our campus, and they were talking about just like navigating campus, and students were sharing that it's really, really hard. And according to a recent report in the Trinidad Express newspaper, the country right. Also, according to a recent report in Trinidad Express newspaper, the country has mourned the loss of at least 4 young students due to suicide in the recent weeks, and we just started the year. I've read a few articles from last year to now presenting the alarming rate of suicide by students due to factors such as bullying and financial sextortion. So even broadly, not at the university levels, but students at the secondary levels were feeling like they didn't have an option and they were dying by suicide. And we are now at the starting of the year and we are just like, and I think one of the most effective ways to destigmatize the issue of like suicide or even mental health on the whole is like through open discussion like the panel we are having today. Because I feel like even students in Trinidad or around the world, we need to equip them with better coping tools to manage. And we need to address like the root causes of like bullying and other related issues as well to the problem. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelsey. Juan or Lumelo?
Yeah, sure. If you want to, I can continue. So I would like to keep talking about the topic that Kelsey just talked about how the pandemic affect our social relationships and interactions with each other. For example, I see here in Colombia, and we have an economic crisis after the pandemic and throughout the pandemic. And in a way to continue our studies, it was getting more difficult with the time. If it was difficult before COVID, after COVID, it was way harder. So the entities and us as a community, we have to help each other. That even though you are not part of the institution because you had to quit school, or even though you maybe don't have the time because you had to get to work immediately because of an economic crisis in your home, we as fellow students, we are members of this community and this society. We should take care of each other mental health, because if we don't have this way to express our feelings, and if we don't have these channels to interact with the other, to tell them that I'm not feeling good, that I'm maybe getting suicidal thoughts, that maybe it's not the best time that I'm living right now, well, that doesn't end good. So we need to find those spaces. I do believe that that can be in the university, of course, or that can be with your family or with your fellow friends, or maybe online you can find some places and some panels that are talking about the same things that are going on in your life. For example, this space that right now we need to talk a little bit more about what is going on. We need to showcase what's happening in society. And for example, one of those things is the social media idealization. I do consider that us getting in Instagram or getting in TikTok and seeing so many influencers that are like 17 years old and have a wonderful life and they're traveling and they have different ways to work, so we feel this frustration as a generation. It's not something that an individual specifically is feeling right now, but a whole generation is living with these expectations of social media that if you maybe focus your life on being a content creator, that you can get somewhere faster, when actually sometimes it's not necessarily like that. It's like sometimes we just have to find our ways of happiness, but to realize that that is the option and to realize that something is not perfectly fine in social media, that is a process that we cannot do alone. So that is a process, that is a realization that we need to do it with the interaction of the others, that we need to empathize with the others, that we all are feeling bad, that we all are feeling anxious, and we are feeling frustrated by those idealizations and those expectations. So I do believe that this is one of the main state of mental health, at least right now here in Colombia.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan, for including that point. And in terms of social media, I'm sure we'll get into that as well as the social isolation piece, which is definitely a epidemic that has occurred with the increase in technology. And then also, I think some of the pandemic is continuing to impact. So thank you, Juan. Lumelo, how about you?
So, in terms of the current mental state of students and university people attending universities within South Africa, the first thing that I want to open with is the statistics actually that came out last month. We had almost close to 400,000 matriculants, or I think you guys call them seniors, that graduated from high school. And that's the highest statistic that South Africa's ever had in history. And that is amazing. However, over 100,000 of those students were not able to get into university. So already at that, there's already some sort of culture that stems from the stresses of just not getting into university. And then those who get in, maybe they don't get into their first choice or their first option or what they wanted to do, their first preference. That is another added pressure. And that kind of now creates a culture of entering into the university space with stress, with mental health issues, or with just like poor mental health within the country. So that's just like a way to kind of introduce how I've seen how, like broadly, how the mental health is within the country. Colloquially, the university that I go to is referred to as the University of Pain, not because they physically do anything to us, but because of how stressful it is to attend University of Pretoria. I've never called it University of Pain, but I've obviously seen it on social media before. And what I've come to realize is that the academic stress that happens or that occurs within universities is so vastly, it's under discussed, but it's so vast, it's so huge that we forget and we seem to not understand that it's not just academic stress. Yes, at surface level, that's what we deal with, but there's the financial issues, there's the COVID-19 issue as well, where parents have passed away or unemployment has increased. There are like social issues or social impactors, if we're really being honest about it. And what I've noticed is the current state face value looks good because you see people on campus smiling every day, walking to classes, leaving lectures. But if we actually deep and understand the problems, is that it's actually quite serious. That with every country that has universities, this is actually a pandemic within the country, it's within the world itself, is that we're dealing with students who are not coping or who are not able to reach out. And what I've realized with my university is a lot of students go and attend counseling. And that's what something that I really, really, really was like, okay, that's very interesting. Or specifically, like one of the committees that I was a part of, the well-being committee. When I was a part of that, a lot of students would attend every Wednesday. And you think, okay, you wouldn't necessarily have that. But then you think, okay, leaving my room for an hour may mean a lot more to me than just as opposed to staying inside and, drowning myself and being more depressed or more anxious about school, as opposed to just rather going to go interact or go talk about my feelings. And that kind of like alarms you or alerts you to like kind of be aware of the fact that the mental health within the institution is not good. However, while I say all of this, one thing I can always, 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 always like boast and gloat about with the university is that there are so many avenues, which I'll obviously discuss later, with regards to mental health and addressing the issue. We've got many and multiple avenues. However, while that is the case, not all reach out. And I think what needs to happen, like what Kelsey said earlier, conversations need to start arising where we start to have conversations and talk about my mental health, your mental health, our mental health. How are you feeling today? And if you're not okay, what do we do when you're not okay? How do we ensure that you can complete your degree and not feel like there's this heavy weight that's sitting on you and feel as though like your mental health must deteriorate in order for you to get your degree? I don't think that should be the case. And I know 50 years ago, 100 years ago, degrees were not being, I don't know, I'd like to presume that like it necessarily, like mental health wasn't obviously the topic. It was probably more financial and other avenues, but it wasn't necessarily mental health. And now in 2025, it's the main conversation. And what are we doing about that to change how students are feeling? So I would like to think overall with all countries, universities do struggle with mental health, students do struggle, because it just kind of breeds this culture from prior to university about getting in, not getting in, acceptance, getting into my course, finances, social media, especially like what Juan said, social media is a huge thing nowadays, COVID-19, and there's just so many aspects that I think, come into play. But definitely the current state of mental health is not good for students. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think Lumelo can moderate next time because she started making the connections that I was going to make between Kelsey's statements and her statement and Juan. So wonderful job there. I will not reiterate what you just said. But I think the main point is the reason we're having this webinar, right, is that this is a pandemic. It's similar experiences across different cultures and trying to figure out what are some of the ways that we can combat that. And it sounds like the openness and having these conversations are a really great start. So we're going to continue with the discussion. What would you say are the main stressors on mental health currently for students in your country? And I know folks were going to highlight some different things. So I think I'll have Juan, if you will start and just start talking about academic and social stressors, please.
Yeah, certainly. So I would like to focus on academic and social stressors because I do consider those were the main stressors, at least for me, throughout my degree. So first of all, the academic, I would like to talk, like I said before, the expectations that we have on our own and the expectations from our parents. So, it depends on what your context is, but at least I can tell that most of us have feel this pressure that you have to be the best, that you have to be the number one, that you have to get tens all across the board, like you have to get tens in every topic and you have to be always doing your best and giving the extra mile. But that is actually not sustainable over the time. There are going to be times that it's going to get really difficult for you to continue at that level. There are going to be times that you are not going to be able to fulfill those expectations, but it is about how we handle those lows, how that is the really important matter for me. So, how the academic is helping you to handle those hard situations. So, for example, the pressure about being a reference in the classroom and the pressure about being a reference for your teachers and fellow students, because at the end of the day, the university doesn't last forever. You have to get a job later. You have to get a different life, in a different context. You have to network. And those are so many topics that comes to mind, and it's going to feel overwhelming. And how can we handle that? We are going to talk about it later, the to the ways that the institutions are helping us, I would like to also highlight the thing that I said before about empathy. The empathy that we have for each other, the empathy to understand each other's feelings, to see if maybe somebody is always giving his best, his, her best, their best, but you don't get to know that person very well. Like that person always comes with a smile, but what is going on behind that mask? We all have a mask. We all have a mask for each contest. We may have developed different personalities for each contest, because you can not always be the extrovert in every situation, but you cannot always be the introvert that you always like to be in every situation. And that also comes to social media. For example, I do consider that handling those personalities and handling those faces that we have to show to society between your personal life and your academic life. So, the balance of the time, how you get time for yourself, for your personal things. Because, yeah, I'm economist and I studied that and I love my career, but I'm not just that. I'm not just my career. I always like to do different things. That's why I'm in the drama club, for example. Maybe I like to learn how to dance. I'm also in sewing degrees and I'm learning how to sew, because we are human beings and we are a complex that involves all of those facts around you. But sometimes society puts you or force you to only be the best in one thing, that you have to focus on that, and then you have to put all of your energy on being an economist because that is what you study. But we are different kind of people, that is not how it actually works. So to finish this part, I would like to talk about the anxiety for the future. I mean, in the future, we expect to be the best economists, have the best job, and once you have that, what's now? you know like once you have that, what is the actual goal? To get a position, to earn that much money, or what is your actual goal in life? Your goal in life cannot be just one number. Your goal in life should be how many people have I impact today with my actions. So maybe I would like to create a foundation that helps others. Maybe I would like to do voluntary, like I would like to help somebody else. Because, like my teacher in the drama club said, not everything that you do has to give you money back. So there are some things and there are some activities that you have to do just, or maybe just for fun, or maybe just because you have to help the others. Maybe because that is your contribution to society. And I do believe that the main stressors are all of the things that I said, but at the end of the day, we are just trying to be our best. We have those difficulties in our minds, but we should always keep striving for being the best of ourselves as a person, as a whole, and not getting in the way of somebody else, not stepping over somebody else. So yeah, that for now.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you so much for sharing about the academic and social stressors. Kelsey, will you talk a little bit about the crime and issues with employment that have been causing mental health issues in your country?
Sure. Before I talk about that, just to add to what Juan was saying, I always tell people I'm never motivated by money, and people always watch me like, well, how are you going to live? And I'm more motivated by impacting society through my like feminist activism or work. And my brother will watch me like, what? So I definitely agree with Judel. And my friends also in the feminist space, one of my friend Francisca said, not everything has to be monetized. Some things could be kept for yourself and it can be personal, and you just enjoy it. You don't have to be monetized. And Omela, the students there call it University of Pain. I've heard students call the University of Distrust in these over here. So we have that common. But currently in Trinidad and Tobago, factors such as crime rates and employment security significantly impact UB students' mental health. In 2024, Trinidad and Tobago experienced a record high murder toll, with the total number of murders reaching 623, which exceeded the highest murder toll, which was in 2022. So last year was the place was just very filled with a lot of hopelessness and just dark in general. The Trinidad and Tobago Newsday reported first-year students expressed deep concern about their future amid increasing rising crime rates and economic pressures at a UWI post-budget forum held on October 10, 2024. The rising crime rates in Trinidad and Tobago has instilled a constant fear of anxiety among UWI students, affecting their daily lives, including traveling to and from campus and even living on campus. In October 2023, UWI students were uneasy after another robbery that has been like a trend on campus. And the UWI St. Augustine principal, Professor Rosemary Bell Antoinette, reassured students about their safety with increased security patrol and the purchase of new equipment for university security. One student even shared to CNC3, we really have to hold Trinidad accountable for the lack of safety around citizens. We cannot go out to get a drink without being held up or walking on the road and people robbing you and catcalling you. This unfortunate sentiment was shared and felt by many UWI students as well. When I started UWI in 2018, most folks told me to be careful and walk in groups. And if you're finishing a class late, to make sure not to walk by yourself, instead of just wishing me like good luck or asking me like, how is UWI going? How is university life? How was the transition? During my first semester at UWI, a female student was sexually assaulted and robbed near one of the bathroom lockers at the student activity center called SAC, basically, where students get to hang out there and relax and stuff between classes. She had put up a fight and managed to get away from her attacker, but the attacker like slashed her on her leg. So you're seeing how violent the crimes could be in Trinidad and even towards UWI students and how this affects their mental health. So this incident sparked outrage from students and resulted in a protest. This series of incidents inspired another student and myself through our feminist club, IGS Ignite, to start Catcalls of UWI, which was inspired by Catcalls of NYC, to create a safe space for students to share their experiences of street harassment and gender-based violence using cyber activism, through graffiti, and community-based interventions. And I've been doing that project for 5 years. Last year made it 5 years. Yeah. So it gives me a sense of hope where I can amplify the voices of students' concerns. And I'm hoping, despite I'm not a longer student at UWI, my last goal to do is do up a report and give to the administration to show how important this project is and the safety concerns that a lot of students are facing on campus. So another issue was difficulty of finding employment in Trinidad and Tobago is a significant stressor for UWI graduates. So UWI offers the World of Work WOW program to help students prepare them for the work world after the degree. Also, Trinidad provides something called on-the-job training, OJT. It's an initiative for young people aged 16 to 35. The OJT program allows participants to gain practical experience in their respective fields for up to 2 years. So even if you don't have a university degree, it starts at 16. So like in America, we'll have like when you finish high school, we will say secondary school here in Trinidad, and then you could do like sixth form or what you will call like probably an associate degree. So yeah, and everybody could get like experience up into their fields for 2 years. So it's a program for the youth and it's valid for 2 years. However, the job market in Trinidad is highly competitive, making it difficult for many UWI graduates to find suitable employment after graduation. The Ministry of Labor, in a statement on November the 25th, 2024, said the on-the-job training OJT program facilitates over 5,000 practical placements annually. So let's take into consideration we have graduates from UWI, and then we have other few other universities here, and then people who probably have skills in other areas but don't have a degree. It's not enough, right? So the current number of placements is insufficient, especially considering that UWI is not the only university. And also, I found in June 2022, the Daily Express reported on the experiences of a first-class UWI graduate who went from seeking employment to feeling forced to migrate. So in Trinidad here as well, a lot of persons share that they didn't have plans on migrating, but they didn't have like job opportunities here for them to stay, or job opportunities here to make like a livable wage. So like they were underpaid. A lot of persons shared feeling depressed, anxiety, a lot of uncertainty with not seeking full-time employment, because a lot of times here in Trinidad, you can be employed with a company for 10 years, but every year they renew your contract. So it makes it difficult also to like take out a loan for a mortgage or just do anything of that sort. So, and then it contributes to the brain drain as well, where many students regret doing the degrees, frustration, and just feel like a financial pressure, as Omela shared from her university as well. And a lot of students said it was feeling hopelessness, low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety.
Kelsey, thank you for sharing those pieces and also just the detail with which you could help us understand what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So I really appreciate that from you. Thank you. Humelo, how about you? I think you were going to talk a little bit more about related to Kelsey, but the financial stress experience in South Africa.
Yeah, so a large portion of what I was going to say is what Kelsey has highlighted, and that is the financial stressor. So within South Africa, just a bit of like context, South Africa is defined as the world's most unequal country, like ever. So, and that is according to the World Bank, the Transitional Justice Department. Like there's just a lot of sources that'll tell you that South Africa is the most unequal country. And outside of this, just the racial diversity, the large portion, the reason why it's defined as the most unequal is the disparity of rich and poor. And unfortunately, majority of the country is not rich, which means that majority of the country who graduates or matriculates aren't people who can afford university. We've all heard that like people believe or have this idea that like attending university or postgrad or post secondary school has a sense of elitism, because only the elite or the rich have access to higher education, which obviously should be more accessible to everybody. And what we find in South Africa, even currently right now, there's actually currently a strike within the country at 2 universities. It's called the hunger strike. But 10 years ago, there was fees must fall. And these strikes kind of initiate that university is too expensive. We can't afford registration. We can't afford textbooks. We can't afford to live there. We can't afford to eat there. We can't afford to sleep there. We can't afford to attend school there. And what's been found is that is a huge that's a huge stress on students, like the financial stressor, because you wake up every day not knowing if your student card will tap you in or not. You wake up every day thinking about the fact that there's a historical debt that you may not be able to pay. How will I graduate without paying? Now I've got bad debts within or under my name, or a bad reputation with the banks because I wasn't able to pay for my school fees. And there's just a lot of stress behind it. Additionally to that, a lot of students in South Africa are actually students who fund themselves, but are also breadwinners within their households. So there'll be a household of like 8 children, which is very common. And there'll be one student who'll be 18 years old, freshly getting to university. And then the rest are like ranging between the ages of like maybe 16 to 8 years old, 6 years old, whatever. And that 18-year-old has the responsibility to attend classes, to pass classes. But after attending and passing class, must go to their job. And they must be able to feed their families, keep a roof over their heads, and ensure that we are able to eat and the whole family is able to eat. Additionally to that, there's a grant called the SASA grant, which is only 350 Rand, but it is only offered to unemployed adults. If somebody's in university within South Africa, they're not considered unemployed, they're considered students. So they don't even qualify for that technically. They can apply, but a large portion of those students who apply don't even end up getting that grant. So just that. And then additionally to that, just the state of the government at the moment isn't at its best financially. 2 years ago, we were grey listed as well. So just grey listing just means that the place of borrowing loans from other countries, etc., isn't at its best, which means that we need to pay the countries back in essence. And what that means also is that the country's unable to just give out grants to people who actually are in need. And what that happens is now when I come to lectures or when the student who can't afford goes to lectures, they sit in a class wondering, how am I going to be able to pay? How do I eat? How do I sleep? When I was chairperson last year, we had students that would come onto campus and actually physically sleep outside because they had nowhere to go. We had a pregnant student as well, or pregnant girl, was 18 years old. She came, had no family, nothing to her name, wasn't even accepted at the university. But because of the fact that there was a certain level of vulnerability of finances, she was accepted through such circumstances. And if you look at those various examples of like sleeping outside and the vulnerability of it, you kind of assess and see how bad the financial situation is within the country and for students as well. And even the statistic I gave earlier about how 100,000 students don't make it, from those who do get into the 20 universities within the country, they can't afford to be here. For example, at the university, there's a registration fee of 10,000 Rand. That's a lot of money. Some universities require 30,000 Rand by the beginning of the year. And everybody knows January is a very dry month for a lot of people. So imagine having a very slow month. And then additionally to that, you now have to pay a registration fee in order to continue with your studies or to start or begin your studies. And I just think that financial stress puts a lot of pressure on students as well, because also then you need to now think, how am I going to succeed so that I can take my family out of the poverty cycle? That's a huge, huge, huge aspect as well. The poverty cycle within the country is quite bad too, because it just keeps repeating itself. And then students who now are within that poverty cycle have to figure out a way how to get out of it, which is very difficult. I've seen statistics that say that there's a very low chance of people actually getting out of poverty because it's such a repetitive, redundant, and difficult cycle to actually escape. And that's what happens within the country as well. And then on top of that, in addition to what Kelsey's mentioned, the unemployment, the job market is also very tight within South Africa. It's very competitive, where you struggle to get employment here, and then people also, the lack of education of the fact that you can go overseas, or the inability to pay for overseas as well, stops people from actually seeking out to go to America, to Australia, to the UK, where people actually are wanting, South Africans are wanting, Colombians want to be from Trinidad, and, they want that. But unfortunately, the inability to have access to education or the finances makes it difficult to do that. And I think just with the financial stress of it, it just makes it very difficult to be a student who needs to worry about passing, but also worry about, how is my family going to eat? If I don't eat, how am I going to write the test tomorrow? And I think that's a huge stress for students. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed. But that's also in itself a long process that needs to be developed. And I think it just stems way deeper than just finances at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I think the structures are not meeting the resilience that the students are demonstrating, right? And the structures are still inhibiting them despite the resilience that they're demonstrating. So thank you so much for sharing that as well. We have two main questions we want to get to, so I'll try to make sure we get to those. I think the next one is one of our most important questions that I'm sure many of the folks on the call are interested about, which is, how does your institution respond to mental health needs of students? What resources are provided, both ongoing and as in an ad hoc based situation, or if issues arise that could affect students' mental well-being. So, Kelsey, you want to start us off with that one?
So, before I answer the question, just to add to what Hamela was saying, another issue, I'm not sure if it is there in South Africa, but another issue that stresses students out, we have a lot of nepotism in Trinidad. So you often find a lot of people who don't have degrees or who family has a certain last name and own a certain company or business, they get preference over probably someone like me who spent some time in UE actually earning my degree as a first generation, someone from a low income family, a working class family, basically. So that's one of the stressors as well. That adds to it as well. So the University of Western East offers a comprehensive range of resources to respond to the mental health needs of students through the Division of Student Services and Development, DSSD. One department is the Counseling and Psychological Services, CAPS. They are a dedicated team of professionals offering free psychological services to students. CAPS provide individual and group counseling, crisis intervention, and mental health workshops. These services are designed to help students manage stress, anxiety, depression, and support for personal challenges, including like homesickness, like international students, relationship issues, death, and grief. Another department is the Student Life and Development Department, SLDD, that nominated me today for the panel. They are exceptional. They provide essential support for students with disabilities, special needs, and general academics assistance. So students now with disabilities they will have a different experience navigating campus life and might have additional stress different, from other students. Their services include provision of aids and devices like laptops, stuff like that, peer tutoring, study skills workshops, and special accommodations for examinations to support students with mental health needs. As a student with mental health conditions, I have received accommodation for examinations that really helped reduce my anxiety and stress as well. So I was really grateful to SLDD. Another department is the Careers, Co-Curricular and Community Engagement C3 department. They focus on basically career development and employability skills through career counseling, job placement services, resume writing, and interview skills workshop to basically help finally as students transition from education to the world and kind of reduce the uncertainty with securing employment and their fear. Besides, UE provides institutional support to address the mental health needs of students. The Peer Counseling Association, PCA, a student-led initiative dedicated to promoting mental health and well-being within the student community. They consist of peer counselors who are trained by CAPS professionals. They offer a safe space for students to discuss their concerns, educate about wellness and mental health topics, and provide referrals to various campus resources if like the issue becomes something that they can handle per se and have a department that can do that. In terms of the campus addressing the high crime rates affecting students through communication strategies and enhanced security measures, the university regularly sends out like security advisories through our student emails, publish it on their website, shares on social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, to help alleviate students' concern about their safety, which significantly affect our mental health because every day you can just like listen to the news or someone directly or something happens on campus itself where a student was robbed or someone tried to assault a student. The administration also collabs closely with the Guild of Students, the governing student body, to address safety concerns expressed by students. So basically, the increasing number of campus police and private security personnel establish restrictive entry points where like only UE staff and students can enter with showing their ID. So limit the persons who are not a part of the UE community from coming on campus. Because a lot of times people find out that they are engaging in what the violence happening to students on campus, utilizing real-time camera monitoring, and also it have you evening students. I don't know if you all have that there. So they will need like additional support because those are students who their classes are mostly late in the night and even postgrad students, so they will have like additional security support. And these initiatives by the campus really aim to create a safer campus for all. Yeah.
So many multi-level layered supports and interventions happening. Thank you for sharing this. Juan, you feel like we haven't heard from you in a little while. Let's hear from you. What are some of the,
Sure.
how is your institution responding?
Well, first of all, I think we have different ways to assist the students, but I would like to first of all mention one of the main topics that comes to mind to the students is like the taking your life away, suicidal talks, because of all of the mental issues that we have mentioned before, all of these topics, all of these difficulties, you end up as a consequence, most of all the students, at least in my university, and I could say in multiple universities and countries, come to suicidal talks. And here we have had different situations of people that have come to the drama club, that is the one that I'm part of. They offer cultural and sports groups like volleyball, like swimming, for example. They can offer drama club, they can offer arts. And I do believe that through cultural activities and through sports, you should channel this frustration, and we can communicate these feelings to the others. So, for example, we have had different plays in the drama club that are talking about this topic. The last semester, we have one play about the pressure of society, and we have this play about how you cannot fall apart, how you always have to fit in every role in your position, how you have to fit in your job, you have to fit in your sexual orientation, you have to fit in your race, you have to fit in everything. So all of that pressure comes to suicidal talks, and we express that through the last play. And I do believe that we were able to channel that because it was a common frustration in the group, and because our teacher, she led us to express and to release those feelings away through a cultural way, so we don't explode, we just channel those feelings. And another thing is that if you are a member of these cultural and sport groups, you can get a financial aid, you can get a scholarship. So that has helped me a lot. It helped me a lot through my career. It helped a lot of my fellow students. It helped us all because, as Lomela and as Kelsey, we were talking about, that financial stress is one of the biggest reasons why you quit school, practically, because maybe you have to take care of a whole family by yourself. Maybe you have to take care of younger sisters and brothers, and you have to take care of your parents who may be sick or maybe not. But all of those financial topics come to mind and doesn't let you to finish your degree. So by giving scholarships, because you are a member of a cultural group, it helps you to finish your career and to get different opportunities. So that is one of the main things. Another thing would be the that you become with this group, it becomes kind of your family. Like, I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and it gets hard. And for example, in an environment that we have right now globally, where they are cutting some rights to the members of our community, you need to find your chosen family. You need to find the people who understand you and the people who support you no matter what. So that's what I found in this group. And I know that many of us, for example, I have this story that I came out like 2016, and then a lot of us came out in the same group. So it was like 15 of us, and 10 of us were part of the LGBTQ plus community. So we can express our feelings that way. And, nowadays, it's a little bit more common to talk about LGBTQ rights, but in 2015, it was not that easy. Actually, we were afraid of getting kicked out of the house. So through the drama club, I was able to channel that. And also in the university, they gave me assistance through a psychology group that was free access. They have undergraduates and postgraduates, postdoctorate students, they give you psychology, so for free, and that's something that as usually happen in different countries, we don't have free access to a good psychologist. So if you go to the free care, have the best assistance through the free entities, the government entities for psychology and for mental issues. But here in the university, they actually give us that for free. And that helped me a lot to come out freely to my parents, for example. And it helped me a lot to face some difficulties in the society because, how are you going to get a job if you dress like that? But I'm just embracing my identity, my gender identity, and always society puts you this pressure that you are not going to be successful if you are not heteronormative, for example. But with this psychologist, I was able to channel that. And with my chosen family, I was able to handle those topics because we were living similar situations. And it's the same thing that I have been talking, like my message that I want to give to all of the assistants in this forum would be to empathy, to be empathetic with the others, because maybe you are not living the same situation as them. Maybe you are strike, but you can listen to what we are living as LGBT plus community. So another way is that, for example, if you are having troubles with learning, because that's another topic that we are talking about recently, most of all, is neurodivergence, like autistic, like with different syndromes, different ways to learn. That's how I like to talk about it with my teacher in the drama club, because we all not learn in the same way. Maybe some topics are easier for me than are for Kelsey, than are for Lomela, So we have to assist each other. We have to find different ways. You cannot expect that 50 students in a classroom are going to learn the same way, the same way that they did in 1950. So you have to update that. You have to adapt your way to teaching to the students how you channel that information, because we have different stressors, as we talked about before, the social media. We have those stressors that were not in the past. So we have to adapt our ways of teaching. And those are some of the most significant things that they offer to us.
Thank you, Juan. I have no way to summarize everything that you shared, but I think a few of the highlights certainly was the very quality mental health support that you received on your campus, and then also the ability to engage with arts-based opportunities to express yourself and also to share about some of the social situations and mental health issues that are occurring. So thank you for sharing both of those. Sake of time, we're going to have Humelo finish us out with her response to this question about what her campus is doing. And then we'll wrap things up. And if our panelists, in the meantime, if you don't mind including your email address, if you want to be reached out to, maybe folks, if they have questions, they can reach them out to you directly. But Humelo, in the meantime, if you will share, I know you have some good experiences with academic success coaches and some other resources on campus. So please share away.
Thank you, Patty. So one huge, like you just mentioned it now, the academic success coaches. So those are basically just people within each faculty that are trained to assist students with actually passing their degree or passing courses, passing modules, passing assistance with lectures, etc. Like what Juan mentioned, not everybody learns the same way. And unfortunately, because of how large we're 60,000 students within the university, we're a lot. So there isn't really the ability to want to have one-on-one with every single student. So what the academic success coaches do is they provide one-on-one assistance after lectures or outside of the lecture time in the lecture space. And what they do is also it branches out into other forms of like well-being and mental health assistances, or like assistant based methods. For example, there's the student counseling unit that is on every single one of our campuses. So we've got 7 campuses. So every single campus has a counseling unit which has free psychology sessions, and then they can diagnose or recommend what after I think 6 sessions, they basically recommend what happens with what should happen moving forward with the student, and they can assist and they can liaise with like the faculty if they feel like the student is not fit to continue for the semester, or if they feel like the student may need assistance with extra learning, or may need extra time when writing tests. So basically, what the academic success coaches do is they like the bridge between the student and the actual university, because we know sometimes like students don't want to interact with the university, so you kind of have to go through every other avenue before you actually reach the university. And then additionally to more forms of like what the institution does, we have peer leadership support groups. So that's what we call in the resident space, the HC committee or the house committee members. So it ranges between 10 to 12 members. And what they do is they're tasked with like there's a specific portfolio that they have to do where they basically manage the residents. And there's one portfolio which is specifically dedicated to well-being. With all 29 residences, there's one person who is focuses specifically on well-being. They get trained every month. They get first aid training. They get all basically all forms of like well-being based training they receive at the beginning of the year and the year before prior to starting their positions. They get trained on how to deal with students who may come to you with depression, and obviously if it's out of their scope, they have the means to access somebody who is able to assist that student moving forward. But basically why the peer leadership is it's really relevant rather, is because it's a lot easier to speak to somebody that's my age as opposed to somebody who is, from like 1970, 1980, sorry, Patty. It's a lot easier to some. Oh, okay, never mind. Not the 1980s. It's a lot easier to see somebody who's like closer to your age, or like a peer rather, because we get each other. Nobody is gonna understand us the way we understand us, and there's a certain level of rapport that we have with one another, or understanding that can never be shared with anybody else. Like, even if I go to a lecture, like, I mean, thank you for the help, but like going to a student who's going through the exact same stress as me, yes, that's all I want to hear. I don't want to hear a lecturer is going to tell me it'll all be good. Like, you've been there, you have a degree in it, you don't understand what I'm going through right now. So it's kind of like things like that make you think like, okay, you know what? I'm having somebody that's my age or closer to my age who can talk me through it, help me understand what's going on, or to actually just basically give me assistance. And then in terms of like talking me through it and like giving me guidance, the university also offers services to assist students with like their finding employment or finding work after their degree. But what they recommend is that you start prior to your final year. So you go to them, they help you write your CV, your LinkedIn, everything. And I think that kind of helps you ease into the workplace as well. And it kind of also makes you see what the job market looks like when you're still in the university space. And also they also put you on like it's called the UP way. They put you, or the up way, they put you on a database, and then within the first 6 months, if you don't get employment, they send out your resume to different employers tailored to your degree or whatever you want to get into, until you can find employment. So one thing that UP is really proud of is that within the first 6 months, 70% of undergrad students get employed, which is a really, 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 really amazing way of like, because I mean, the services are there and they're provided. And then just the last focus that we have, like the UP kind of focuses it on a more like larger scale. What I like about the other institutions is that it's a lot more focused, because then you can actually like nail it down to like what the actual issues are within the university. But UP has every Wednesdays well-being Wednesday. What that basically is just every Wednesday, let's talk about our feelings, let's just discuss our feelings. Every faculty has it, every resident has it. Basically, this is just so that nobody's excluded from being able to discuss their feelings. If you can't do Wednesdays, there are online platforms that also allow you to discuss your feelings, how you feel, how you're doing, and all of that. Also, at the end of every single quarter within the university space, you get to actually rank and rate how your semester went. So what people actually normally do is they actually just speak about their feelings, how a lecture made them feel on a specific day, how the module made them feel, and then the specific faculty and that like analyzes that and discusses, okay, what is wrong and what is making students so stressed about this specific module? What are the factors that make it difficult? So every quarter there's like a survey that must be filled out by students that actually makes them like examine how to improve the mental and the physical and academic stress and basically environment for all students. So yes, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I thank you all. Those resources that are being shared and just the strategy and the problem solving that's happening on each of your campuses really shows that your campuses are taking the mental health of students very seriously. And I think the fact that they're involving you all as students as well in the decision-making process and the approaches that they're going to take will make sure that they are really student friendly, like Camilla really was highlighting there. So thank you all for sharing those. We're going to wrap up. I appreciate everyone staying a little bit of extra time. I'm going to pass it off to Lisa from IASIS. And again, thank you to our panelists and thank you all for attending as well. But Lisa.
Thank you so much. I first want to thank Patty for saying yes. Thank you, Patty. And her experience and her research on mental health just made it perfect for her to lead this discussion. And students, we couldn't do it without you. I want to thank your departments that sponsored you. And I want to thank everyone for supporting this. IASIS is an International Association of Student Affairs and Student Services. And I'm going to mention here for those that are working in student affairs and student services to learn more about us. You could visit that page to learn more about IASIS and the work we're doing. But if it wasn't for those professionals and those practitioners on the campus in South Africa, in Colombia, and in Trinidad and Tobago, we wouldn't be able to have this happen. So thank you again. And that's all I have. And we will send around the recording.
Thank you. We hope you all have a great rest of your day. And panelists, if you want to just stay on for a few
Yeah.
minutes.
I want to do a picture with the panel.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.